Listen up, you screen, addicted, avocado toast, munching couch potato. You think you're tough because you survived a Wi-Fi outage. Paft. Let's drop you in the Wild West, 1885, where the only cloud is dust choking your lungs. You wake up, face down on a saloon floor, smelling like regret and someone else's whiskey. Your phone's dead. Shocker. And your skinny jeans are chafing. Welcome to hell with Spurs. The saloon's a dump, splintered tables, a piano missing keys, and a bartender who looks like he chews nails. He squints, spitting into a glass. What's your poison, city slicker? You mumble about oat milk lats. He laughs so hard his mustache falls off. Outside, it's worse. The sun's frying your brain, and the streets a parade of klitches, cowboys with squinty eyes, horses that hate you. A tumbleweed's mocking your existence. You're starving, but the only food is beans so rancid they're planning a jailbreak. You try to fit in, but your man Bun screams, "Shoot me." A grizzled prospector offers a swig of gut rot. You sip, and your throat files for divorce. By noon, you're dodging horse crap and realizing indoor plumbing's a dream. You spot an outhouse. Sweet relief. Except it's a wooden box of nightmares, buzzing with flies and a smell that could kill a buzzard. You hold your breath, praying for death. Then a shadow looms. Some bandana wearing goon with a 6-shooter growls. This town ain't big enough for us both. You're about to pee yourself, and not from the Oathhouse vibes. Spoiler, you're not the hero. You're the guy who trips over his ego and lands in a cactus. Oh crap, you're still here, staring down Bandana Bob's revolver like it's a TikTok filter gone wrong. You stammer, "Can't we just, vibe?" He spits tobacco juice that lands on your sneakers. Vibe. I'll vibe your hide. The crowd gathers, smelling blood and bad decisions. You try running, but your skinny jeans are basically shackles. Bob's finger twitches. You scream, "I'm gluten-free," thinking it's a personality trait. Spoiler, it ain't. A sassy saloon girl, all corsets and attitude, grabs your arm. Move, pretty boy, or your buds are chow. She drags you into an alley, where rats the size of chihuahuas give you side eye. Her name's Sadie, and she's got a mouth filthier than the outhouse. You're dumber than a sack of hammers, she says, tossing you a hat to cover your man bun. You're grateful until you smell it. Pure UD horse sweat. Sadie explains Bob's the town bully, and you've got two options: fight or flee. You pick flee, obviously, because your cardio's limited to scrolling X. She points to a horse tied nearby. Ride that to the next town. You approach the beast, which glares like it knows you're a vegan. You climb on, or try to, and face plant in manure. Sadie cackles. City boy, you ride like a drunk possum. You finally mount, but the horse bolts, dragging you through cactus patches. Thorns shred your dignity and your jeans. You're screaming, the horse is farting, and Sadie's voice fades. Don't die, ya idiot. Up ahead, a pause's dust cloud grows. Great. You're not just a loser. You're a hunted loser. You're clinging to this demon horse, which is speed, running your funeral. Cacti whip by, each one high-fiving your face with spines. The pauses closing in. Their whoops sounding like a budget Western soundboard. You're screaming, "I just wanted fuck," as the horse decides it's auditioning for the Kentucky Derby. Your hat, Sadie's gross gift, flies off, probably happier free than on your sweaty head, You glance back, 6 riders, all teeth and guns, led by a guy with a beard like a feral hedgehog. You're no strategist unless you count Bing, watching Netflix as planning. The horse veers toward a creek, and you pray it's not deep. Spoiler, it is. You're soaked, smelling like wet dog and regret, but the horse finally stops, probably to laugh at you. The posse is still coming, so you ditch the horse and crawl into a bush. It's prickly, because of course it is. You hear Beard Guy bark. Find that tenderfoot. Tenderfoot. You've done yoga like twice. Hiding. You realize your phone's still in your pocket, useless as a paperweight. You whisper, "Siri, save me," and get silence. Rude. The posse's horses snort nearby, and you hold your breath, praying your stomach doesn't growl from those cursed beans. A snake slithers by, giving you a "you're screwed" look. Then, Americla, the posse rides off, thinking you drowned. You crawl out, soaked and pathetic, only to hear a new voice. "Well, ain't you a sad sack?" It's a grizzled old coot with a donkey and a grin like he's seen too many bar fights. He offers you a ride for a price. You've got no money, just vibes. He laughs. "Then you're my new errand boy. You're stuck with old Coot, who smells like whiskey and bad choices. His donkey Mabel farts louder than a foghorn, and you're riding behind, choking on dust and dignity. He's yammering about his glory days robbing stagecoaches while you're just trying not to fall off. Your new job? Fetch his supplies from town, which sounds like a trap. You're no errand boy. You've got a Spotify playlist called Boss Energy. But Coot's got a knife that says otherwise. Back in town, it's high noon, and everyone's squinting like they're in a Clint Eastwood fan club. You're limping, cacti spines still lodged in places you don't want to discuss. Coot hands you a list: whiskey, tobacco, and something shiny. You're like, "What?" A disco ball. He slaps your back, nearly breaking your spine. The general store's a nightmare. Shelves of junk, a clerk who hates you, and prices that scream robbery. You try bartering with your phone. Clerk laughs. "That's no pocket watch, fool." You grab the goods, but your man, buns drawing stares. A kid yells, "Nice hair, lady." You're ready to yeet him into next week. Outside, you trip over a drunk cowboy, spilling whiskey. He wakes up swinging. You dodge, barely, and run, straight into Sadie. "You again." She groans. You're a walking disaster. She helps you up, mostly to mock you. Coot's waiting, but now the drunk's buddies are circling, looking for a fight. You're clutching tobacco like it's your lifeline. Sadie whispers, "Run, or you're coyote bait." You bolt, but Coot's donkey trips you. The mob's closing in, and you're praying for a PowerPoint presentation to escape this mess. You're sprawled in the dirt, Mabel the donkey's fart cloud suffocating you, while a gang of drunk cowboys closes in. You're clutching Coot's tobacco, like it's the One Ring. But these guys aren't here for smokes. They want your face rearranged. Sadie's already ditched, yelling, "You're on your own, dumbass." Charming. Old Coot's cackling, like this is his Tuesday entertainment. You scramble up, tossing the tobacco as a distraction. It works for like 2 seconds before a cowboy with a unibrow grabs your collar. "You spilled my drink, fancy pants." You try explaining your hinty violence. But he's not buying your TED Talk. The saloon doors swing open. and the crowd drags you inside for a fair fight. Fair. You've never punched anything but a keyboard. Unibrow's cracking his knuckles, and the bartender's taking bets on how fast you'll cry. You spot a spittoon and consider drowning yourself in it. Then inspiration hits. You channel every bad Western you've seen. Let's settle this with words, you shout. The room roars with laughter. Unibrow swings, and you duck, tripping over a chair. The crowd loves it, thinking you're scrappy. You're not. You're terrified. You grab a bottle, hoping to look tough, but it's empty. Unibrow charges, and you accidentally smack him with it. He's out cold. The saloon erupts, calling you hero. Hero? You're a walking Yelp review for bad luck. Coots slaps your shoulder. Not bad, kid. But now the sheriff's here, eyeing you like you're trouble. He's got a badge, a scowl, and a voice like gravel. You're with me, he growls, cuffing you. Great. From bar fight to jail in 10 minutes. You're killing this Wild West thing. You're cuffed, being marched to jail by Sheriff Grumpy, who's muttering about damn tenderfoots ruining his town. Your wrists hurt. Your jeans are still wet. And you're pretty sure Mabel's fart is stuck in your hair. The jail's a stone box with bars and a smell like despair and old socks. Sheriff shoves you in, saying, cool off. Hero. Hero. You knocked out Unibrow by accident. You try explaining, but he's already gone, probably to scowl at a tumbleweed. The cell's got a drunk snoring loud enough to wake a coma patient and a rat that's judging your life choices. You sit on a cot that's basically splinters with ambition. Your stomach's growling, but the only food's a bowl of mystery sludge. You sniff it and gag. It's like the beans unionized and went rogue. You're starving, so you choke down a spoonful. Big mistake. Your guts stage a revolt, and you're praying the cell's bucket is cleaner than the outhouse. It's not. Hours pass. Or maybe minutes. Time's blurry when you're living a nightmare. You try picking the lock with a hairpin from your man bun. Spoiler, it doesn't work, and now you're bald in one spot. The drunk wakes up, sees you, and offers advice. Punch harder next time, pansy. Thanks, Socrates. Then, a clatter outside. Sadie's back. Picking the jail's lock with a hairpin that actually works. You owe me, loser, she whispers, tossing you a rope. Escape sounds great until you realize it's noon, and the sheriff's posse is lunching nearby. You're sneaking out when the drunk yells, "Thier, a scapin." Smooth. Now the posse's saddling up, and you're running with Sadie. Wondering if Uber exists in 1885, you're sprinting with Sadie, the posse's hoofbeats, shaking the ground like your heart's shaking your ribcage. You're gasping. I'm not built for this. While she hisses, move your scrawny ass. The town's a blur of dust and angry faces, and you're dodging chickens and a pig that's weirdly judgmental. Sadie yanks you behind a barrel as bullets zip by. Bullets. You're not dodging notifications here, pal. She's got a plan, steal a horse and bolt. You're like, I already failed Horse 101. But she's not hearing it. You creep to a stable where a mare eyes you like you owe her money. Sadie saddles her faster than you can say. Yeehaw. And you're hoisted up, clinging like a koala with commitment issues. The horse takes off, and you're screaming, thighs burning worse than that time you tried CrossFit. The posse's still on your tail, and Sadie's cussing enough to make a sailor blush. You're weaving through a canyon, rocks exploding from gunfire. You shout, "This is worse than Black Friday." She laughs, which is rude. A bullet grazes your ear. You're 1 inch from being a tragic hashtag. Sadie veers into a gulch, losing the pause, but now you're stuck in a maze of rocks. The horse is panting. You're sweating, and Sadie's muttering about dumb city boys. You dismount, or rather fall off, landing in something squishy. Cow pie. Perfect. Sadie's scouting when a new problem strolls up a cowboy with a scar and a grin like he eats kittens. Well, he drawls. You're in my territory now. Sadie pulls a derringer. But Scarface has friends. You're surrounded, and your only weapon's a cow pie. Time to get creative, loser. Your knee, deep in cow crap, surrounded by Scarface and his goons, who look like they flunked charm school. Sadie's derringer's pointed, but it's one tiny gun against 6 ugly mugs. You're holding a cow pie, because apparently that's your life now. Scarface laughs. What's that? Your lunch. You yeet the cow pie at his face. Direct hit. He's gagging. His buddies are stunned, and Sadie seizes the moment, pistol whipping a goon. You grab a stick. Yep, a stick, and swing like you're in a bad kung fu flick. It breaks on impact. Because of course it does. Sadie's shouting, "Run, you idiot." You bolt, tripping over rocks, while she covers you, firing shots that sound like freedom. You're scrambling up a ridge, lungs burning, when you hear Scarface roar, "I'll skin ya!" Charming guy. You and Sadie dive behind a boulder, panting like you ran a marathon. She's pissed. You threw poop. Really? You shrug. It worked. Barely. The goons are searching, and you're praying your skinny jeans don't squeak. Sadie spots a cave and drags you in. It's dark, damp, and smells like bat guano. You whisper, "This is worse than my Tinder dates." She shushes you, but you hear boots outside. You're holding your breath, wondering if bat poop's flammable. Spoiler, don't test it. The goons pass, and Sadie relaxes, but now you're stuck in a cave with no plan. She mutters, "We need a hideout." You're like, "What about a spa?" She glares then. A low growl echoes. Not human, not friendly. You turn and see glowing eyes. A coyote. A bear. Whatever it is, it's not here for cuddles. Sadie's gun's low on ammo, and your stick's long gone. Time to channel your inner Bear Grylls, or at least fake it. You're in a cave, staring at glowing eyes, heart pounding like a bad EDM track. Sadie's gun's got 1 bullet, and you've got nothing but panic and a half, baked yoga certification. The growl gets louder, and you whisper, "Is that a puppy?" Sadie hisses, It's a damn coyote. Genius. Great. You're about to be kibble. You grab a rock, because apparently you're now a caveman. The coyote lunges and you chuck the rock, missing spectacularly. Sadie fires, grazing it, and the beast yips and bolts. You're alive, but your ego's in the ICU. Sadie's fuming. You fight like a drunk toddler. You're too shaky to argue. The cave's a dead end, so you crawl out, checking for Scarface's goons. Coast's clear, but it's mid-afternoon, and you're starving, filthy, and sporting a bald patch from your jailbreak fail. Sadie leads you to a creek to clean up. You dip your hands, expecting a spy vibe, but it's colder than your ex's heart. You splash your face and scream. Leeches. You're flailing, pulling them off. while Sadie laughs so hard she snorts. Welcome to the West, Princess. You're leech-free but traumatized. She says there's a hermit nearby who might hide you. You trek through scrub, dodging snakes, and your own bad luck. The hermit's shack is a pile of sticks and bad vibes. He's ancient, with a beard like a wizard and breath like a landfill. Who's this fool? He croaks, eyeing your jeans. You try charm? I'm, an influencer. He spits. Useless. But he lets you in, demanding you chop wood for supper. You swing an axe, nearly losing a toe. While Sadie and Hermit whisper about plans. Plans. You're just trying not to die. Then, hoofbeats. Scarface is back, and he's pissed. Scarface's paws is circling the hermit's shack, and you're holding an axe like it's a selfie stick, useless and shaking. Sadie's whispering to Hermit, who's muttering about traps. You're like, traps. Like for bears. They ignore you. Scarface yells, come out, cow pie boy, rude, but accurate. You're ready to surrender, but Sadie slaps your face. Grow a spine, city boy. The hermit hands you a rusty knife and points to a trapdoor. You're praying it's a portal to 2025, but it's just a dirt tunnel. You crawl through, gagging on spider webs, while Sadie and Hermit rig something above. You hear a crash. Gunfire, then silence. You poke your head out, and Scarface's goons are tangled in nets, cursing like sailors. Hermit's traps worked. You're impressed until a stray bullet nicks your shoe. You yelp, diving back into the dirt. Sadie hauls you up, grinning. Not dead, yet. Barely. The goons are tied up, but Scarface escaped, promising revenge. Hermit offers stew, which smells like socks, but tastes worse. You eat, because starvation's not cute. It's late afternoon, and Sadie says you need to move before Scarface rallies more thugs. Hermit gives you a mule. Yes. Another farting animal. And a map to a safe town. You're skeptical, but options are slim. You mount the mule, which hates you more than the horse did, and trudge off with Sadie. The sun's brutal, and your bald patch is sunburned. You're whining when Sadie spots dust on the horizon. Riders. Not friendly. You're like, can't we just Venmo them to leave? She draws her gun, and you're gripping the mule, praying it's faster than it looks. Spoiler, it's not. The riders are gaining, and you're one bad bounce from a face plant. You're bouncing on this mule, which is less a ride and more a punishment, as riders gain on you. Sadie's cursing, her gun ready, while you're screaming, I'm too young to die. You're not, but drama's your brand now. The mule farts, slowing down, because of course it does. You glance back. 4 riders, all hats and bad vibes. Led by a guy with a mustache that screams, I rob widows. Sadie shouts, hid for the rocks. You veer toward a boulder pile, praying for cover. The mule trips and you're airborne, landing in dirt softer than your ego. Sadie's already behind a rock, firing. You crawl to her, dodging bullets that make your Tinder rejections feel kind. Do something, she yells. You grab a pebble and chuck it. It hits nothing, obviously. Mustache guy laughs. This your bodyguard, lady. You're offended but busy not dying. Sadie's out of ammo, and you're out of ideas. Then the mule, bless its gassy heart, charges, scattering the riders. You seize the chaos, grabbing a dropped pistol. You've never shot anything but a selfie, but you aim and fire. The bullet hits a cactus, which falls on mustache guy. He's down, yelling about damn succulents. Sadie's impressed, or just shocked you're useful. The other riders flee, and you're left panting, gun smoking, feeling like a badass. Sadie snatches the pistol. Don't get cocky. Cow pie. You're still buzzing when she spots a stagecoach in the distance. That's our ride, she says. You limp over, the mule trailing like it's plotting revenge. The driver's a squinting old man who demands payment. You offer your phone. He spits. Fancy brick. Sadie barters with a stolen watch, and you're on board. Headed to safety. Spoiler, nothing safe with you around. You're crammed in a stagecoach, bouncing like a ping-pong ball, with Sadie and a driver who's half blind and fully grumpy. Your butt's numb, your bald patch is a sunburned beacon, and the mule's tied behind, farting a symphony. You're like, this is first class, right? Sadie rolls her eyes. Keep dreamin', city boy. The coach smells like sweat and broken dreams, but it's better than dodging bullets. You're headed to a town Sadie swears is safe, but her track record's sketchy. You're munching stolen jerky, tough as your dating life, when the driver yells, bandits, perfect. Dust clouds rise, and 3 masked riders gallop up, guns blazing. You duck. Screaming, I'm just here for the aesthetic. Sadie's firing through a window, and you're hiding under a seat, clutching your useless phone. The driver's cursing. The coach is swerving, and you're praying for a plot twist. Sadie yells, grab the reins, because the driver's slumped, grazed by a bullet. You're like, I failed my driver's test, but crawl up grabbing the reins. The horses hate you, veering wildly. You're yelling, full influencers. Like that'll help. Sadie's shots scatter the bandits, but one's still on your tail, close enough to smell his bad life choices. You jerk the reins, and the coach tilts, tossing the bandit into a ditch. At a hero, accidentally. Sadie grins. Not bad, cow pie. The driver's awake, grumbling in your back under the seat, heart pounding. The town's in sight, saloons, stables. Same old crap. You're hoping for a shower, but Sadie says, we're laying low ball. The coach stops, and a new face appears, a slick gambler with a grin like a used cars salesman. Heard your trouble, he says. Great. Another fan. You're in a new town, stepping off the stagecoach like a budget Indiana Jones, except your whip's a sunburn, and your treasure's trauma. The gambler, Slick Rick, is all teeth and cheap call-on, eyeing you like you're his next scam. Sadie's wary, muttering, don't trust this snake. You're too tired to care, dreaming of why. Fi and a nap. The town's buzzing, saloons, drunks, and a guy selling miracle tonic that smells like regret. Rick leads you to a saloon, promising sanctuary. Inside, it's a circus, card games. Bad piano, and a barmaid who winks like she's billing by the hour. You're starving, but the menu's just beans and mystery meat. You pick beans because you're a glutton for punishment. Rick slides you into a poker game, saying, win, and we're square. You've played Uno, so how hard can it be? Spoiler vary. Your opponents are a one-eyed cowboy, a preacher with knuckle tats, and a lady who's definitely poisoned someone. You're bluffing with a pair of twos, sweating like you're in a sauna. Sadie's at the bar, watching. Ready to bolt. You raise with Rick's watch, because you're an idiot. One eye calls, and you're screwed. His flush eats your twos for breakfast. The table erupts. And you're out of chips and dignity. Rick's grin fades. You owe me, kid. Great. Now you're in debt to a guy who'd sell his mom for a dime. The preacher grabs your arm, growling. Pay or pray. You're stammering when Sadie tosses a coin, saving your ass. We're leaving, she snaps. But Rick's not done. He whispers. One more game. Or I tell Scarface where you are. You're trapped, and the saloon's getting rowdy. Time to fake it till you make it, or die trying. You're back at the poker table, sweating bullets, and not the fun kind. Slick Rick's got you by the short hairs, threatening to snitch to Scarface if you don't play. Sadie's fuming. Whispering, fold and run, mourn, but you're in deep, facing one, eye preacher and poison lady, who's stroking a knife like it's her pet. You're dealt a hand. Garbage? Naturally, but you channel every Heist movie you've binged. Bluffing's your only shot, so you push all in with a smirk, muttering, YOO. The table freezes. One eye squints, preacher prays, and poison lady giggles, which is terrifying. You're shaking, praying your man, bun doesn't flop. Miraculously, they fold, and you rake in the pot, coins, a knife, and a deed to a gold mine. Rick's pissed, but you're feeling like a king. Sadie drags you away before you ruin it. You got lucky, cow pie, she says, shoving you toward the saloon's back door. It's evening, and the town's lit by lanterns and bad decisions. You're clutching the deed, dreaming of riches, when Rick corners you. That mine's cursed, he sneers. Keep it, but you're dead meat. Great. You and Sadie slip into an alley, dodging drunks and a stray dog that's meaner than your boss. She's plotting your next move when hoofbeats echo. Scarface. Worse, a posse led by Sheriff Grumpy, who's still mad about your jailbreak. You duck into a stable, hiding in hay that's itchier than your ex's texts. Sadie's cursing your luck, but you're distracted by the gold mine. Deed. It's probably a scam, but you're desperate. The posse's searching, and you're sneezing, blowing your cover. Sheriff's voice booms. Come out, tenderfoot. You're screwed. Unless you can talk your way out or sprint like Usain Bolt. Spoiler, you're no Olympian. You're buried in hay, sneezing like you snorted pollen, while Sheriff Grumpy's paws tears the stable apart. Sadie's hissing. Shut up, you human allergy. But your nose is a traitor. The sheriff's boots crunch closer, and you're clutching that cursed mine deed like it's a winning lottery ticket. You whisper, can we bribe him with this? Sadie slaps your bald patch. It's worthless, idiot. A pitchfork stabs the hay, missing your face by an inch. You yelp, and the jig's up. Sheriff yanks you out, sneering. Thought you'd outrun me, tenderfoot. You try charm. Love your badge, very shiny. He cuffs you again. Sadie's caught too, cursing enough to make a pirate blush. You're marched to the town square, where a crowd's gathered, smelling blood and popcorn vibes. The sheriff's preaching about justice. But you're distracted by a saloon girl. Yep, the winking barmaid, slipping you a key. She whispers, midnight. Jail. You're confused but nodding because she's scary hot. Sadie notices and rolls her eyes. Focus, cow pie. It's nightfall and you're back in jail. Same drunk cellmate. Same judgy rat. Sadie's plotting escape, but you're dreaming of barmaid rescues and gold mines. The drunk mumbles, "Sat mine's haunted, kid, haunted." You're skeptical. But this day's been a horror show, so maybe. Midnight hits, and barmaid appears, unlocking your cell. "Move," she says, tossing you a shawl to hide your bald patch. Sadie's suspicious but follows. You sneak out, dodging patrols, and barmaid leads you to a wagon. "Get in," she says. You're like, "Is this an Uber?" She shoves you inside. It's loaded with dynamite. Dynamite! Sadie's face says you're screwed. The wagon rolls, and you hear Scarface's laugh in the distance. Barmaid's betrayed you. And you're riding a bomb to nowhere. You're in a dynamite-packed wagon, rolling through the night, with Sadie muttering, "We're dead, you moron." Barmaid's ditched you, probably cackling with Scarface. You're like, this isn't the vibe. But the vibe is Explosion City. The driver's a goon, whistling like he's not hauling death. You're tied up, because of course you are, and your bald patch is itching under the shawl. Sadie's working her ropes, whispering, "If we die, I'm haunting you." Comforting. You spot a lantern swinging. Fire plus dynamite equals bad Instagram story. You're panicking, but Sadie frees herself. Then you, with a knife she borrowed. You're impressed until the goon notices, yelling, "Sit tight, rats." Sadie lunges, knocking him off. The horses bolt, and you're grabbing reins again. Because apparently, you're a professional screw-up. The wagon's careening toward a cliff, dynamite rattling like your nerves. You scream, "I just wanted tacos." Sadie's steering, sort of, while you pray to every deity you've Googled. You spot a river below, salvation or doom. Sadie yells, "Jump." You're like, in this outfit. But dive as the wagon tumbles, exploding in a fireball that make Michael Bay jealous. You hit the water, freezing and alive, barely. Sadie's coughing, dragging you to shore. It's pitch black, and you're soaked, shivering and smelling like failure. She's fuming. You attract trouble like flies to crap. Fair. You're lost, no food, no plan. But you've got that stupid mind deed. Soggy, but intact. Sadie spots a campfire nearby. Friend or foe, you're creeping closer when a voice drawls, "Well, ain't this a sorry sight?" It's a new cowboy. All hat and no manners, with a gang that looks ready to roast you. Sadie's hands on her knife, and you're praying your charm's better than your aim. You're dripping wet, facing cowboy hat, and his gang by a campfire that's more threatening than cozy. Sadie's knife's ready, but you're just a soggy mess. Clutching your mind deed like it's a security blanket, hat smirks, "Lost your way, city slicker." You try humor. Just, sightseeing. His gang laughs, but it's that "we're gonna bury you" kind. Sadie hisses, "Shut up, cow pie." Hat offers whiskey, which you chug, because bad decisions are your cardio. It burns like Satan's tears. And you're coughing up dignity. They're bandits, obviously, and Hat's eyeing your deed. "Satmine's cursed," he says. "But I'll take it." You're like, "It's my retirement plan." Sadie elbows you. "It's a scam, idiot." The gang's circling, and you're regretting every life choice, especially the whiskey. Sadie's negotiating, offering the deed for safe passage. Hat agrees, but his grin says betrayal. You hand it over, and he laughs, tossing it in the fire. Your dreams of gold, poof. You're pissed. But Sadie's already moving, slicing a rope tying their horses. Chaos erupts. Horses stampede, bandits scramble, and you're running, tripping over roots. Sadie's ahead, yelling, "Move." You drunk slug. You're weaving through trees, bandits shooting wildly. A bullet clips your shawl, and you're screaming, "I'm too pretty to die." You dive into a ditch. Sadie beside you as the gang rides off, cursing. You're safe for now, but lost in the woods. It's late, stars mocking your existence. Sadie's plotting, but you're whining about blisters. Then a train whistle. Salvation. You limp toward the tracks, hoping for a ride. The train's slowing, but shadows move on board. Bandits again. You're cursed, and Sadie's knife won't cut through your bad luck this time. You're limping toward the train tracks, stars laughing at your misery, while Sadie's muttering about your death wish. The train's a rusty beast, slowing at a water stop. But shadows on board scream trouble. You're like, "Can't we just hitchhike?" Sadie glares, dragging you behind a crate. You're shivering, soak. And your bald patch feels like a third-degree burn. The shadows are bandits. Same gang, because your luck's a cosmic joke. They're robbing passengers, tossing luggage like it's Black Friday. Sadie's got a plan: sneak on board, hide in a cargo car. You're like, "I'm not cargo." But follow, because she's scarier than the bandits. You crawl under the train, dodging grease and your own cowardice. Sadie boosts you into a car stuffed with crates and, oh, joy, more dynamite. You whisper, "This is my nightmare aesthetic." She shushes you, but a bandit hears, poking his head in. You freeze, praying your heart beats not as loud as it feels. Sadie throws a crate, knocking him out. You're impressed until the train lurches, sending you into a dynamite pile. You're not exploding yet, but the bandits are searching. Sadie's prying open a crate, finding gold bars. You're like, jackpot. But she's practical, grabbing one to bribe your way out. You're sneaking to the next car when a passenger spots you, screaming, "Thieves!" Great. Now the bandits and crew are after you. You're running, tripping over sacks, while Sadie's tossing gold to slow them. The train's speeding up, and you're in the caboose, cornered. A bandit with a scar, not scarfus, but clothes, grins, raising his gun. You yeet a sack of flour, blinding him. Sadie kicks him out the door. And you're heroes, sort of. The train's nearing a station, but the crew's closing in. Time to jump again. You're in the caboose, flour everywhere, with Sadie yelling, "Jump." You flour-covered disaster. The train's screaming toward a station, and the crew's coming with pitchforks and bad attitudes. You're like, "I'm not built for Parker." But the alternative's a lynching, so you leap, landing in a bush that's 90% thorns. Sadie rolls, somehow graceful, while you're picking spines out of places you didn't know existed. It's midnight, and you're in a new town, lit by torches and chaos. The train's gone, but the station's crawling with deputies who heard about thieves. Thieves. You're like, "I'm innocent." Sadie snorts. You're a walking crime scene. You're limping, covered in flour and shame, when a kid spots you. "It's them bandits." He yells. Kids are the worst. Deputies charge. And you're running again, because apparently that's your cardio now. Sadie leads you to a barn, slamming the door. It's dark, smells like hay and regret, and you're praying for a nap. No luck. A lantern flicks on, and it's Slick Rick, the gambler with a shotgun. Fancy meeting you. He drawls. You're like, "This is worse than my group project." He's mad about the poker game and wants the gold you don't have. Sadie's negotiating, but you're distracted by a fuse sparkling nearby. Dynamite, again. You scream, "We're gonna blow." Rick laughs, thinking you're bluffing until the barn shakes. Sadie dives, you trip, and Rick's caught in the blast. Unharmed but pissed. The barn's toast, and you're sprinting through flames, deputies on your tail. Sadie's laughing because she's unhinged. You're in a field, hiding, but dawn's breaking and Scarface's voice echoes nearby. He's tracked you, and this time, he's got a cannon. A cannon. Your day's about to get explosively worse. You're crouching in a field, dawn painting the sky like a cheap modal mural, while Scarface's cannon looms like your student loan debt. Sadie's whispering, "Stay low." Cow pie, but you're shaking, flowers still caked in your hair. The barn's a smoldering ruin. Deputies are circling, and Scarface is yelling, "I'll blast ya to kingdom come." You're like, "Can't we just DM him an apology?" Sadie's knife glints, ready for war, but a cannon's not a fair fight. You're crawling through weeds, thorns shredding what's left of your jeans, when you spot a ditch. You dive in, Sadie behind, as a cannonball obliterates a tree. You're alive, but your dignity's a casualty. Scarface's goons are fanning out, and you're praying your bald patch doesn't glow in the sunrise. Sadie's got an idea. Distract and run. You're the distraction because of course you are. You stand, waving like an idiot, shouting. Over here, you knock off Villing. They shoot. You duck, and Sadie sprints, circling behind. You're dodging bullets, feeling like a bad action hero when Sadie tackles a goon, stealing his horse. She yells, "Get on." You scramble up, nearly castrating yourself. And you're galloping away, cannonballs whistling past. You're screaming, "I hate this app." Like the West is a buggy game. They horses fast, but Scarface is reloading. You're headed for a ghost town, all crumbling shacks and bad omens. Sadie ditches the horse, pulling you into a saloon's ruins. It's quiet, too quiet, and you're panting. Realizing you've lost the deputies, but not Scarface. He's close, his laugh echoing. You find a trapdoor. Salvation or trap. Sadie's game, and you're descending into darkness, praying it's not another dynamite stash. Spoiler, your luck's not that good. You're in a pitch black tunnel under the ghost town saloon, Sadie's knife scraping walls like a horror movie teaser. You're whispering, "Is this the part where we die?" She hisses, "Only if you keep whining." Your bald patch is sweating, and you're tripping over roots, because even the ground hates you. The tunnel smells like mold and your bad decisions. Above, Scarface's boots thud, his cannon rolling. You're like, who brings a cannon to a manhunt? Sadie's focused, navigating by some cowgirl's sixth sense. The tunnel opens to a cave, lit by a crack in the ceiling. Jackpot, crates of whiskey, not dynamite. You're tempted to chug, but Sadie slaps your hand. Focus? Cow pie. You're plotting when Scarface's voice booms. "I know you're down there." Great. He's got dynamite now, because why not? You're scrambling, finding a ladder to a shack above. You climb, emerging in a crumbled church, all dusty pews and creepy vibes. Sadie's behind, but a blast shakes the cave. Scarface is blowing the tunnel. You're trapped topside, Dawn's light exposing your flour-caked face. You're like, I need a filter. Sadie's scanning for exits. But Scarface's goons storm the church, guns drawn. You dive behind an altar, praying for a miracle. Spoiler, God's busy. Sadie tosses whiskey bottles, and you light a match. Yep, Molotov, cocktail time. The goons scatter as flames erupt. But Scarface laughs, unharmed, cannon aimed. You're out of tricks, and Sadie's out of knives. Then a rumble. Not an explosion, but hooves. A new posse, led by Sheriff Grumpy, rides in. Guns blazing. They're after Scarface, not you, for once. You're cheering until a stray bullet grazes your arm. You're alive, but this day's not done screwing you yet. You're bleeding behind the altar, church burning, while Sheriff Grumpy's posse trades bullets with Scarface's goons. Your arm's grazed, but you're whining like it's amputated. Sadie's ripping her shawl to bandage you, muttering, You're softer than a city pillow. You're like, I need WebMD, but she's busy dodging gunfire. The sheriff's yelling, Surrender, Scarface. But Scarface's cannon roars, blowing a hole in the church. You're coughing through smoke, praying your TikTok followers never see this. Sadie drags you to a window, shattered by a stray shot. You're climbing out, glass cutting your already tragic jeans, when Scarface spots you. Not so fast, cow pie, you're famous, but not the good kind. You sprint, Sadie covering, as the posse gains ground. Scarface's goons are dropping, but he's still swinging, now with a saber because he's extra. You're in the ghost town street, tripping over skulls. Actual skulls. You're screaming, This is not OSA compliant. Sadie's laughing because she's unhinged. Sheriff's men lasso Scarface, but he cuts free, charging you. You grab a plank, swinging like a drunk piety at a hitter. It snaps because your life's a comedy of errors. Sadie tackles him, but he throws her off. You're next, and his saber's inches from your face. You close your eyes, ready for the end, when a shot rings out. Scarface drops, grazed but alive. Sheriff standing tall. You're saved, sort of. The posse cuffs Scarface, but Sheriff's eyeing you. You're still trouble, tenderfoot. You're cuffed again, because this day's allergic to happy endings. Sadie's free, winking. I'll bust you out, cow pie. You're marched to a wagon, sunrise mocking you, wondering if jail's got Wi-Fi. Spoiler, it doesn't. You're cuffed in a wagon, bouncing toward jail again. Sunrise turning the sky into a smug painting. Your arms bandaged, your jeans are rags, and your bald patch is a red, hot embarrassment. Sheriff Grumpy's riding ahead, muttering about, Damn city folk. You're like, I just want a smoothie. But the West doesn't care. The wagon's driver is the drunk from your first cell, now sober and meaner. He sneers, You're coyote bait, kid. Charming. You're plotting escape, because Sadie's out there. Probably planning something reckless. The ghost town's fading, but you hear hoofbeats. Not friendly. It's Scarface's last goon, a guy with a face like a bad taxidermy job. He's free, and he's pissed, shooting at the wagon. The driver panics, horses bolt, and you're bouncing like a bad VR game. Sheriff's firing back, but taxidermy's got dynamite, because this day's obsessed with explosions. You're cuffed, useless, as a stick lands near you. You're screaming, I'm too niche to die. When Sadie rides up, cutting the wagon's ropes, the horses scatter, and you're rolling, crashing into a ditch. Sadie uncuffs you grinning. Miss me? Cow pie. You're free, but taxidermy's coming, dynamite lit. You grab a rock, chucking it with your one good arm. It hits his hand, and the dynamite drops, blowing him into next week. Sheriff's impressed, or just tired, and lets you go, muttering, "Get out of my sight." Sadie leads you to a cave, you're heady out. You're exhausted. But the mind deed's memory haunts you. Was it cursed? You're pondering when a weird hum starts, like bad Wi-Fi. The cave glows, and you're dizzy, reality bending. Sadie's fading, yelling, "Hold on." You're not in Kansas, or 1885, anymore. You're in the glowing cave, head spinning like you chugged hermit stew. Reality glitching harder than a laggy Zoom call. Sadie's voice echoes. "Stay with me." Cow pie. But she's fading, and you're falling through light, colors swirling like a bad acid trip. You land. Thud. On your couch, 2025, Netflix paused on a Western. Your phone's alive, buzzing with X notifications. You're like, was that a fever dream? Your jeans are fine, your arm's not grazed, but your bald patch is still sunburned. Weird. You check X, and posts talk about time slips in the desert. You're shook, but your Wi-Fi's back, so priorities. You grab a seltzer, vowing never to watch Westerns again. But your TV flicks on, showing a saloon. You scream, chucking the remote. It's just Netflix, but you're paranoid. Your phone pings, a DM from Sadie, 1885. Miss me? Tenderfoot. You yeet the phone because nope. You're done with curses, mines, and dynamite. You check your pocket, finding a soggy note. Not the deed, but a saloon receipt with, "Don't come back," scrawled. You laugh because what else can you do? You're safe, soft, and ready to order DoorDash. But the hum starts again faint. In your walls. You're like, not again, and unplug everything. The hum stops, and you're alone, wondering if Scarface is still out there plotting. You post on Xtree. Survived the Wild West. AMA? Replies flood in, calling you crazy, but one says, check your couch. You dig, finding a single, dusty spur. You're done. You lock it in a drawer, vowing to stick to TikTok and tacos. The West chewed you up, but you're back, barely. Time to live your soft, modern life, unless that hum returns. You're on your couch, 2025, clutching a seltzer like it's your lifeline, still freaked by that spur in your drawer. Your phone's buzzing with X replies to your survived the Wild West post, half calling you a liar, half begging for deets. You're like, I'm not trending for this. When the hum starts again, low and creepy, like your neighbor's bad EDM. You check the drawer. Spurs glowing. Because of course it is. You yeet it across the room, screaming, I'm done with yeehaw nonsense. It lands on your rug, and the hum spikes, making your teeth rattle. You're dizzy. And, poof, your apartment blurs into a saloon. Same splintered tables, same nail-chewing bartender. You're like, not this crap again. Your jeans are back to rags, bald, patch burning. Sadie's there, smirking. Missed ya, cow pie. You're panicking because time travel's not on your vision board. She's real, not a ghost, but her eyes glow weird. Like she's buffering. You kept the spur, she says, tossing you whiskey. You chug gagging, it's 1885 gut, rot, not artisanal. She warns the spurs tied to the cursed mine, binding you to the West. You're like, I just wanted tacos. A vision hits Scarface, free, plotting with a cannon. You're shaking. Spilling whiskey when Sadie hands you a notic. Break the spur. Break the loop. The saloon fades and you're back on your couch, spur pulsing. You're sweating, Googling cursed cowboy artifacts, but X is your only lead. You post, anyone know a spur exorcist? Replies flood in, cranks mostly, but one says, find Doc weird. Paranormal pro. You're desperate, so you DM them, praying Doc's not a scam. The hum's louder and your DoorDash burrito's cold. This Wild West mess is ruining your chill. You're in an Uber, clutching the glowing spur like it's a grenade, headed to Doc Weird's Paranormal Emporium in a sketchy strip mall. Your ex post about the spur got you here, but you're regretting it because Doc's Yelp reviews scream, con artist. The shop's a nightmare. Crystals, skulls, and a smell like incense and regret. Doc's a wary guy with a ponytail and a vibe like he's seen too many UFOs. You're like, fix this cowboy curse, waving the spur. He squints, muttering about temporal anchors. You're lost, but he says the spur's tied to 1885, pulling you into time, slips. You're like, I'm not a tower DIS. He lights sage, chanting, and the spur hums louder, floor shaking. You're dizzy and bam, you're in a dusty canyon 1885, jeans shredded again. Scarface is there, cannon aimed, laughing, back for more. Cow pie. You're screaming, I just wanted closure. Sadie's nowhere, and you're dodging cannonballs, sprinting through cacti that hate you. Your bald patch is a sunburned target, and you're praying for Wi-Fi. You trip, spur falling, and Scarface grabs it, grinning like he won the lottery. The world blurs, and you're back in Doc's shop, sprawled on a rug, spur in hand. Doc's unfazed, saying, you pissed off a time loop. You're like, no duh. He says destroy the spur in a neutral zone, some desert spot. Or you're stuck going to 1885. You're panicking because your only neutral zone's a Starbucks. You book it, spur humming, X blowing up with. Your cursed lol replies. You're in the desert by dusk, ready to smash this thing, but a shadow moves. Human, not coyote. Your burrito's churning, and you're one bad vibe from a pants-related accident. You're in the desert, spur in hand, hum deafening, as a shadow steps into the moonlight. It's not Sadie or Scarface, just some hiker with a headlamp, yelling, you lost. Bro, you're like, you have no idea. You're ready to smash the spur with a rock, because Doc Weird said it'll break the curse. The hiker's filming you for X, because privacy's dead. You raise the rock, but the spur's glow spikes, and you're yanked back to 1885, landing in a saloon brawl. Fists fly, bottles smash. And you're dodging a cowboy who smells like regret. Sadie's there, tossing you a knife. End it, cow pie. You're like, I'm not a ninja. But the spur's in your pocket. Burning, you stab it, because logic's gone, and the saloon freezes, cowboys fading like a bad render. You're back in the desert, hiker gone, spur cracked but still humming. You smash it again, screaming, stay dead. It shatters, and the hum stops. Silence, you're free, maybe, but your phone pings a final DM from one SETI ain't 85. Nice try, tenderfoot. West ain't done? You block her, because boundaries, you're limping to your Uber X-post trending with Spur guys unhint? Comments. You're home, spur dust in a Ziploc. Vowing to stick to Netflix rom-coms, but your TV flicks to a Western and you yeet the remote because paranoia's your new roommate. You're safe, for now, but Sadie's words haunt you. Was the mine real? Is Scarface still out there? You order DoorDash because burritos fix everything, but a faint jingle, like spurs, echoes outside. You lock the door, praying it's just the neighbor's cat. The Wild West's grip is loose, but you're not betting on game over yet. Hey guys, tonight we begin with something a little less philosophical, but no less fascinating. The food served in Wild West saloons. Sure, they were known for whiskey, bar fights, and questionable piano music. But what did people actually eat there? Was it all beans and bacon, or were there surprises hiding behind those swinging doors? So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing that hit you when you walked into a Wild West saloon wasn't the piano music or the sound of someone losing a week's wages at cards. It was the smell. Forget the romanticized scent of sizzling steak and fresh cornbread. The real bouquet was more like a punch in the nostrils. A complex blend of sweaty cowboys, wet tobacco, old beer, damp wood, horses that hadn't bathed in a decade, and if you were lucky, the faintest hint of something cooking in the back. Some saloons tried to mask it with sawdust on the floor or pipe smoke thick enough to cause temporary memory loss. Others just embraced it. You don't come here for the air, barkeeps would say, slapping flies off the counter with a rag that hadn't been clean since the Civil War. And yet, somehow there was always a kitchen. It might have been a hole in the wall fire pit with a pan of beans bubbling over embers. It might have been a grumpy woman in a soot-covered apron stirring mystery stew with a spoon that doubled as a self-defense weapon. But food was being made somewhere. And if you could smell it through the sweat and the whiskey vapor, you were halfway to dinner. That is, if you could find a seat. Most saloons weren't laid out like modern restaurants. There were no servers, no menace with scripted fonts. Just a few splintered tables, some rickety chairs, and one long counter where you could eat, drink, argue, or all three in rapid succession. If you were a regular, the cook might shout something like, beans or stew, and you shouted back your choice without looking up. If you were new in town, they'd stare you down, trying to guess whether you were going to pay or pass out before the plate hit the table. And that's what made saloon dining so special. It wasn't about taste. It was about survival. You ate what they had, not what you wanted. You sat next to strangers who might rob you or save your life tomorrow. And if the food made you sick, well, that's what whiskey was for. In the hierarchy of Wild West cuisine, beans sat squarely at the top. Not because they were delicious, but because they were cheap, indestructible, and could survive an apocalypse, a gunfight, and a stampede without breaking a sweat. Pinto beans, black beans, navy beans. It didn't matter. If it was dry, vaguely edible, and could be boiled into submission, it ended up in the pot. Beans were the unsung heroes of saloon kitchens, served morning, noon, and night, often to men who hadn't seen a vegetable since they left Kansas. Preparation was simple. Step 1. Pour beans into a pot. Step 2. Boil them for 6 hours over a questionable fire. Step 3. Serve them with salt pork, a stale biscuit, and a look of mild apology. Some cooks tried to get fancy, adding lard, onions, or even chili powder if they were feeling ambitious, but most didn't bother. In the Wild West, flavor was considered a luxury, and seasoning was whatever blew in from the open window. Beans were hearty, filling, and predictable. 3 traits that cowboys respected more than gold. They fueled long cattle drives, powered poker nights, and gave you something to chew on while you waited for the piano player to start again or for someone to get tossed through the front window. The only downside: aftermath. 1 cowboy eating beans was tolerable. 10 cowboys in a saloon full of beans was a biological weapon. It's said that some bar fights weren't started by insults, but by a single silent but deadly betrayal near the stove. Still, beans were dependable. When the meat ran out, when the chickens fled, and when the cook had exactly 7 brain cells left from the whiskey fumes, the beans remained, unbothered, unburnt, unchanged. Some cowboys even preferred them. They could be eaten cold, reheated endlessly, and used as makeshift currency in emergencies. Legend has it a man once bought a horse with 3 of salted beans and a promise never to return. So yes, saloon food had its highs and lows. But beans were the baseline, the bedrock, the humble heartbeat of 1,000 dusty meals. You didn't love them. You respected them. And sometimes that was enough. If beans were the soul of Wild West saloon cuisine, salt pork was its slightly greasier backbone, a slab of fat and meat so tough it could survive a thunderstorm, a bar brawl, and 6 months in a saddle bag without changing texture. Salt pork wasn't bacon, though cowboys love to pretend it was. It was pork belly, heavily salted and often smoked, preserved in barrels with enough brine to season a small ocean. The salt kept it from rotting, and also arguably from being edible. Cooked right, salt pork was tolerable. Fried up in a hot skillet, served crispy and sizzling, it had flavor, grace, and that satisfying crunch that made you briefly forget the rest of your dinner came from a can. But cooked wrong, which happened often, it was like chewing a salted boot heel dipped in axle grease. Still, salt pork had its fans. It was easy to transport, hard to ruin, though many tried, and gave even the blandest pot of beans a salty punch of joy, or at least a reason to drink more whiskey. Cooks in saloons didn't waste a single bit. The fat used to fry everything from potatoes to biscuits. The rind tossed into stews or given to dogs or to unlucky newcomers who didn't know the difference. One bite and they'd learn real quick that the barkeep wasn't joking when he said, "Chew slow or choke proud." And yes, sometimes the pork was suspicious. A greenish tinge here, a questionable smell there. But in saloons, the motto wasn't, "Is it fresh?" It was more like, "Did it kill the last guy? If not, you gave it a try." Salt pork was versatile, too. It could be diced into beans, slapped on biscuits, fried alone, or gnawed at like jerky on long rides. Cowboys packed it like treasure, and saloon cooks leaned on it when the chickens ran off or the stew pot got too thin. It wasn't elegant, and it sure wasn't healthy. But in a world where you might ride 60 miles before your next hot meal, salt pork got the job done. And if you survived it, well, you were stronger for it. In the Wild West, stew was the great culinary equalizer. Hot, vaguely meaty, and deeply suspicious. It was the one thing almost every saloon served, no matter how ramshackle the kitchen. Why? Because stew was the perfect cover story for whatever odds and ends the cook had lying around or couldn't legally describe. The base was simple: a pot, a fire, and ambition. You started with water, maybe some beans or potatoes, and then you tossed in whatever hadn't walked away yet. Beef, sure. Rabbit, definitely. Squirrel. Yep. Rattlesnake. If it wasn't biting anymore, toss it in. One traveler once claimed he found a bootstring in his bowl. He wasn't even mad. It was the most chewable part. Meat quality varied wildly. Some stews had tender chunks of beef from the local butcher. Others, well, they had meat, the kind you didn't ask about. If the cook looked nervous and the dog population had recently decreased, you just ate around the chewy bits and prayed. Vegetables, when available, were usually boiled into oblivion. Carrots became orange smudges. Onions disappeared completely. Potatoes held on the longest, but eventually surrendered. The result, a bubbling brown-gray slurry that smelled, waiter, better than it looked and tasted better than you'd expect. Assuming enough salt. Spices were a luxury. Most stew got its kick from whatever was on the cook's hands or knife. If you got black pepper, you were in a fancy place. If you got chili powder, congratulations! Your sinuses were about to be cleared by force. But despite the mystery, stew was comfort food for the wary cowboy. It was hot, it was filling, and it could be stretched endlessly by just adding water. One pot might feed a dozen men, or be reheated 3 days in a row until it developed the consistency and personality of old glue. You didn't eat stew because it was delicious. You ate it because it was there, because it was warm, and because nothing else in town was edible unless you liked chewing tobacco and regret. Just remember, never ask what's in it. Because in the Wild West, ignorance wasn't just bliss. It was dinner. Not every cowboy could afford a steak. But nearly every saloon had something bread, like to soak up the stew. That something usually came in one of two forms: soft, flaky biscuits that were heavenly when fresh, or hardtack, which was basically bread's undead cousin. Let's start with the biscuits. When done right, which was rare but magical. They were warm, buttery, and flaky enough to convince a man he'd stumbled into a proper kitchen. Cooks who could make good biscuits were local legends. Some claimed their secret was lard. Others swore by buttermilk. A few probably just had lucky hands and low standards. These biscuits were best served alongside beans or stew, used to mop up whatever broth hadn't burned your tongue. They were often made in cast iron pans, baked over open flames, and served with a suspicious chunk of butter or a splash of molasses if the place was fancy. And then there was hardtack, a slab of flour and water baked until it could survive nuclear winter. Originally made for soldiers and sailors, it found its way west thanks to one simple fact. It never went bad. It also barely qualified as food. Eating hardtack required strategy. First, you'd inspect it for weevils, which wasn't a deal-breaker, just an added crunch. Then, you'd soak it in stew, coffee, or whiskey until it softened. This could take anywhere from 10 minutes to 2 presidential terms. Even after soaking, chewing, hardtack was a commitment. You didn't just eat it. You grappled with it. Dentists probably made good money off cowboys who challenged a peace and lost. But here's the thing. Both biscuits and hardtack served their purpose. They were cheap. They were portable. They filled you up. And in a world where calories mattered more than cuisine, that was enough. So if you strolled into a dusty saloon and saw a plate of steaming biscuits, you counted your blessings. If they handed you a hardtack puck the size of your palm, well, at least it came with a story and maybe a chipped tooth. If you think modern coffee is strong, try cowboy coffee. A brew so potent it didn't just wake you up. It stared back and dared you to blink. Coffee in the Wild West was less about taste and more about survival. It wasn't roasted by origin, filtered through fancy gadgets, or topped with oat milk foam art. It was ground roughly, or not at all, dumped into a kettle and boiled until the liquid turned black and sentient. The standard recipe went like this. Take water from whatever source you had, hopefully not downstream from the horses. Throw in a handful of coffee grounds measured by instinct and aggression. Boil it hard. Don't strain it. Don't question it. Just pour and pray. The result, a thick, dark concoction that smelled like burnt dreams and tasted like vengeance. It wasn't uncommon for the last sip to contain more grounds than liquid, which meant cowboys got both caffeine and fiber in one heroic gulp. And yet, they loved it. Coffee kept you warm on cold desert mornings. It kept you awake through night watches. It masked hangovers and helped digest questionable stew. It was fuel comfort and punishment. All in one tin cup. Saloons didn't always serve coffee unless they had a kitchen, but if they did, it came out boiling hot, probably old and strong enough to strip paint. One cowboy described it as like drinking a kick from a mule, but you miss it when it's gone. Fancy folk might have added sugar or canned milk if available. Everyone else just grimaced and powered through. And if a saloon had been reheating the same pot all day, you'd get the boldest brew known to man, thick as tar and twice as resentful. It's worth noting that some cooks reused old grounds to stretch the pot. This economy method led to coffee that tasted like disappointment and regret, but it still counted. Because in the Wild West, you didn't drink coffee for pleasure. You drank it to feel alive and stay that way. In the Wild West, meat wasn't just food. It was currency, status, and occasionally a test of bravery. If you could afford it, you might walk into a saloon and order a steak. What you got depended entirely on luck, timing, and whether the cook held a personal grudge against your face. Steak, in theory, was a luxury. In reality, it was often a tough, overcooked slab of beef that had been fried in a pan with lard, scorched into obedience, and served with exactly zero garnish. If you asked for it medium rare, the cook would just stare at you until your mustache wilted. When fresh beef wasn't available, and let's be honest, it usually wasn't, saloons turned to other options. Dried jerky, salted buffalo, occasionally venison, or even wild boar if someone had gotten lucky on a hunt. And by lucky, we mean managed to hit it and drag it back before the buzzards did. In mining towns or far-flung settlements, meat got more creative. Squirrel stew, rattlesnake roast jack rabbit with seasoning. If it had legs and didn't belong to a customer's horse, it was fair game. Sometimes you were served meat, and no one told you what it was. That was a sign to eat quietly and not ask questions. If you chewed too long or found something resembling a whisker, you just sipped your whiskey, nodded solemnly, and accepted your fate. There was also the risk of age. Some meats had been hanging around long enough to earn names. Cooks would slice off the bad parts, drown the rest in gravy, and tell you it was well aged. If your plate twitched when you poked it, you were entitled to one raised eyebrow and nothing more. Still, when the meat was fresh and the cook wasn't drunk, you might get a real meal. A sizzling slab of beef, a fried egg on top, and maybe a biscuit on the side. A plate that reminded you why people survived gunfights for this. But most of the time, you ate what was there and hoped it didn't eat you back. In a Wild West saloon, dessert wasn't really a category. It was more of a happy accident, the result of a cook with spare ingredients and a tiny sliver of mercy. But if there was one reliable Swedish comfort, it was cornbread. Made from simple cornmeal, water, or milk, lard, and sometimes a dash of baking powder. If the cook remembered, cornbread was the Swiss Army knife of the frontier menu. It could be baked in pans, fried in skillets, or even dropped by spoonfuls into boiling stew if someone was in a hurry or lazy. Alone, cornbread was dry, crumbly, slightly sweet, depending on who made it, and always best served fresh, which meant it was almost never fresh. More often, you'd get a wedge that had been sitting near the stove since sunrise, hardened like a miner's conscience. But here's where the magic happened. Molasses, a dark, sticky, syrupy miracle that turned dry cornbread into something just shy of glorious. It was the cowboy's frosting, the outlaw's drizzle, the lonely gambler's last bit of joy before losing everything on a bad hand. Molasses was affordable, kept well in the heat, and masked the sins of even the driest baked goods. If a saloon had a barrel of it, you were in luck. If they warmed it before serving, you were practically eating at a 5-star establishment by frontier standards. Some cooks went a step further, pouring molasses over skillet-fried cornbread and tossing in a pinch of salt or spice. It wasn't quite cake, but it felt like it if you'd been chewing jerky and heart attack all week. Cornbread with molasses became the default dessert. Quick, cheap, filling, and sweet enough to calm your nerves after a rough ride or a close call in the poker room. No icing, no whipped cream, no frills, just grit, grain, and gooey satisfaction. And for many, it was more than enough. Because when your life involved cattle drives, dust storms, and the occasional shootout, dessert didn't need to sparkle. It just needed to remind you that not everything in the West was trying to kill you. If you were lucky enough to stumble into a saloon before noon, preferably sober and not bleeding, you might have been offered eggs and chicken. And if so, you were in the presence of a miracle or a trap. Let's start with the eggs. Fresh eggs in the Wild West were gold. Not actual gold, but nearly as rare and equally fragile. Chickens weren't raised for fun. They were cranky, prone to wandering, and occasionally stolen, eaten, or lost to foxes. If a saloon had eggs on hand, they either had their own chickens, a local supplier, or a secret smuggling operation from the next town over. What kind of eggs were they? Hopefully chicken, possibly duck, maybe something else. You learned not to ask. You ordered eggs, and what you got depended entirely on the cook's mood and the egg's age. Some were scrambled to disguise color. Others were fried until the yolks turned to leather. And if it wobbled when it hit your plate, that was a sign from the universe to order whiskey instead. As for chicken, it was on the menu, but not often. If it said fried chicken, what you'd probably get was a scrawny bird that died angry. Tough, bony, and fried in lard until the flavor tapped out. Chicken wasn't always worth the chewing. But it was meat. It was hot, and it wasn't beans again, so folks ate it gratefully. You might get a drumstick the size of your thumb, or a whole quarter roasted on an open flame. You might also get a feather in your gravy, and that was just part of the charm. Breakfast offerings of eggs and chicken were a status symbol for saloons. They said, "We have food that didn't come from a can or a barrel." If the eggs were warm and the chicken wasn't dry, you'd tell your buddies for weeks. And if it gave you food poisoning, well, that was just the West reminding you who was in charge. Still, there was something hopeful about ordering eggs. They meant morning. They meant survival. And just maybe, they meant you'd live to drink again by nightfall. In a Wild West saloon, pie was more than just dessert. It was a statement. If you saw a pie sitting on the bar, steam rising, crust golden, scent of apples wafting through the smoke and whiskey, you knew this saloon meant business.